Good afternoon. It's McCollum on Business, Thursday edition, and I don't know what sound that was if the microphone picked it up as I was getting ready to talk. Hey, I'm Stephen McCollum, and for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to get you set up on what's happening around the business world. Of course, a lot of fallout or a lot of recovery here coming our way after the president spoke yesterday in Switzerland. We talked about that on yesterday's show and kind of leading into the markets today as well. And let's get all into that with the Market Watch. Lots of news out there today and kind of breaking stories as well as we get into the stocks here. Just really quick, the personal consumption expenditures price index came out today. That, of course, is what the Fed uses as its main forecasting tool out there. It did show inflation at 2.8% for the month, both for the headline and core numbers as well. This is for the November timeframe. The readings were in line with the expectations, but it did show inflation obviously is staying stubbornly above that target 2% there by the Feds. 2.8% is what it came in at. Personal income did rise 0.1% in October, 0.3% in November as well. By the way, the 0.3% in November was zero point 0.1 percentage points below the forecasted number. So basically right there. Consumer spending did increase 0.5% in both months. So that came out this morning. Not affecting the markets at all out there with that inflation just staying stubbornly high there. Dow Jones right now at 482 points to 49,583. The S&P 500 is up 51 points to 6933. The Nasdaq's up 265 points to 23,490. The Russell 2K, that small cap index, it's 31 points up here today to 2733 for it. And then there's Bitcoin down underneath 90,000 still, but getting closer to that 90,000 level. 89,354 for Bitcoin here today on the market. So lots of stuff, right? They've recovered completely from that big sell-off on Tuesday for those tariff fears around Greenland. We officially have everything back to levels at or above that level on the sell-off on Tuesday here this week. So some good news here of what the recovery is after that Tuesday sell-off. Stocks we are paying attention to right now, well, the first one we're going to look at is JP Morgan Chase out there. And why are we looking at JP Morgan Chase? Well, President Donald Trump has officially sued them. We knew this was coming. I kind of wanted to see what the stock would do. You could see it has tanked here in the last 30 minutes to 45 minutes or so. It's gone a big sharp downhill because that's when this news broke. It is official. President Trump sued JP Morgan Chase and also its CEO, Jamie Dimon. He sued him here today for closing his and his related entities' accounts in early 2021 after decades of being customers of the bank. Obviously, the president thinks it was for political reasons on why they closed him down and debanked him and his businesses. The closures came, of course, right after the January 6th, incident, if you want to call it that, there at the Capitol. Some people say riot, some people say non-riot. So we're just going to call it an incident here on this non-political show out there. So it came after that, and obviously after he was president of the United States. So obviously JP Morgan says that they're confident this lawsuit has no merits out there. President Trump thinks that he was unfairly targeted after that incident as well back then. But that suit is official now, and you can see JP Morgan Chase's stock, although it's up 1.26% here right now, it has fallen today sharply after the announcement of that lawsuit being official here today. Next stock we're going to take a look at, Procter & Gamble's making some waves here in pre-market trading and all day here in trading days as well. 2.59% up right now for them. Well, they're, up 2.58% right now. It was down 1.5% in pre-market trading out there. So it's quite the rebound here for this stock as well for Procter & Gamble. If you don't know, they do a lot of the packaging stuff, consumer products is what they do. Well, they are up because their fiscal second quarter adjusted earnings were $1.88 per share, and they topped the estimates out there of $1.86 per share. Revenue was the problem, though. Revenue was $22.21 billion. It came in below that expected level of 22.28 billion if you want to be specific there. So mixed results from Procter and Gamble. They did maintain its full year forecast for revenue and adjusted earnings per share growth as well. And as I said, pre-market trading down about 1.5%. Well, nice rebound here if the market's open at 2.60% up right now for it as well. And then we're going to look at McCormick out there. Yes, the spice maker. And folks, you aren't buying enough spices out there. Spice up your life. Get some McCormick spices on your food out there as well. Yeah, disappointing fourth quarter earnings results for this company. McCormick's adjusted earnings of 86 cents per share. Well, it was short of the 88 cents expected by the market. Revenue did come in at 1.85 billion, which was slightly above the estimate of 1.84 billion dollars for McCormick as well. So they're down 8.50% there as well. So guidance for adjusted earnings, for the fiscal year ending November of 26 for McCormick also came in short. So they're uh, projecting out this year, and they're saying they're going to be on the low end as well of the expectations for the full year. So that's why they are big down here. 8.50% here today for the spice maker out there. Later on, when we come back and look at stocks, we're going to look at a cloud company, software company called Datadog. Love the name of that company. GameStop, we're going to look at as well. We talked yesterday about them closing a bunch of stores and a bunch here in Arizona as well. So, got an update because CEO making some waves, and then we'll look at Intel as well coming up next time we look at the stocks. And really quick update here, right? The Feds are getting ready to meet here for, this January, February timeframe making. And a lot of the news there, right, with the DOJ looking into the Feds and their, the statements that were made around the building. Are interest rates going to continue to be cut? Well, one thing we know is, we don't know for sure, but we know how it looked yesterday. We're talking about the Supreme Court justices. They all heard the arguments here over the effort to fire that Fed chairman, right? The one that's been there for a while, Lisa Cook. This is all President Trump trying to fire her based on the allegations she committed mortgage fraud. Of course, she denies that she did mortgage fraud. No president, if you remember, has ever fired a sitting governor in the 112-year existence of the Fed. So that's a big deal here, right? The Fed is structured to remain independent of day-to-day politics. The case presented the court with one of the most interesting efforts by Trump to expand presidential power. The court has frequently sided with him on emergency petitions, by the way. Well, this one might be different, judging by the questions that the judges were asking yesterday. I'll just tell you this. They were favoring, it looks like they're leaning toward not allowing that firing to hold up. And they're going against President Trump here, at least in the questions and the way it looked yesterday. So if you allow Lisa Cook's firing out there on the Fed to go forward, well, they say it would weaken, if not shatter, the independence of the Federal Reserve. Yeah. One of President Trump's appointees on the Supreme Court said that yesterday in court. And 5 other justices on the court also, don't forget there's 9 of them on there right now, but not 5 other ones also, well, they were sounding skeptical in their questions. They were going against the president's team about this deal and kind of leaning the other way with their questions as well. So at least on the looks of things, now we've seen other trials here in the Supreme Court where you walked out of it, reading it and hearing it going, oh, this is going this way. And then they rule another way out there. So it doesn't mean it's the end, but it looks like the president might not be able to fire Lisa Cook here for at least that reason. Now, is there a reason you could fire him? Now, if she was guilty of mortgage fraud, I think the case would be a little bit easier, but be interesting to see. But that is going through the system right now, the court system as well there with the Supreme Court. And now let's another interesting out there with the FCC yesterday. Federal Communication Commission came out and they've changed their rulings here on within elections coming up. And they said, the FCC did, that daytime and late night TV talk shows, which do have interviews with political candidates, well, they must now comply with equal time rules. And that gives airtime to views of both candidates out there, right? The opposing candidates. And it shows that they cannot rely on what they've been relying on, that 2006 decision that suggested that those daytime talk shows and late night talk shows were exempt from the equal time rule. That's why a lot of times you'll see, one presidential candidate that leans left on a certain program, but not the one that leans right on there at all, or the conservative or the Republican side of it. Well, that's all changing here, at least by yesterday's talk. We'll see if it continues. But talk shows have qualified for the equal opportunities exemption as genuine news interviews. That's ever since the FCC's Media Bureau granted an exception to the interview part of Jay Leno's Tonight Show. And this is where it comes back in 2006. Ever since then, networks have relied on the ruling as a precedent for recent interviews with political candidates. Now, the FCC's Media Bureau, they came out yesterday and they said that networks should not rely on that 2006 decision. They said that it, quote, has not been presented with any evidence of the interview portion of any late night or daytime television talk show program on air presently would qualify for that exemption. The agency added that any program or station seeking assurances that the equal time requirements do not apply to them, well, they should, quote, promptly file a petition for the declaratory ruling, unquote. So basically, they're going to have to file a thing justifying why they are exempt. A ruling's going to have to come out from the FCC. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes here coming up as well, with obviously going into midterms next year as well. And here's an interesting follow up for you. If you're on the ACA, right, the Obamacare guidelines, and a lot of talk here of the profits that the companies are getting with, of course, the subsidies from the federal government going directly to these health companies. United Health Group CEO Stephen Hensley, well, he vowed yesterday to rebate Affordable Care Act profits to customers here in 2026. Yes, some pressure from the government maybe forcing this. And United Health is the biggest one out there. They provide insurance coverage to about 1 million individuals enrolled in Obamacare plans in 30 states. They say they will rebate 2026 profits to the customers on that program. Hensley is one of 5 insurance company CEOs who were set to appear in January, actually today, before a House committee probing insurance affordability, which insurance premiums have gone through the roof, and they're covering less. Not just on the ACA or Obamacare. The hearing comes as the expiration of those, of course, tax credits from the COVID years that sent ACA insurance costs soaring for everybody on those ACA plans. Without the enhanced tax credits that expired at the end of 2025, average cost for 22 million Americans who are on that program, they've more than doubled here in January. That's according to KFF. We've told you about this before. They're a health policy nonprofit out there. If you Where we stand on that in the government, I had to look this up. The House of Representatives did vote to extend the enhanced subsidies for an additional 3 years. That was earlier in January. Problem is, the bill's less likely to clear the Senate and get through that with the proper votes. The Senate has previously voted to reject the enhanced subsidies for any time frame, let alone 3 years. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, they estimate that the House legislation to extend the subsidies that 3 years, well, they say it will add $80.6 billion to the federal budget deficit by 2035. Now, the CEO of United Health Group, when he was announcing this, did come with prepared remarks, but he urged Congress to broaden consumer choice by making catastrophic ACA plans eligible for tax credits. That's a move that he said would give younger and healthier consumers options to obtain affordable coverage. Healthy people don't need health insurance for the most part. They don't buy health insurance, let's put it that way. Young people, because they're generally healthy. But the catastrophic version of it, where you get a bad car accident, plane crash, I don't know, go to horrific things that happen. You can get coverage for that side, so you're saved from those big expenses. You can't get that on the ACA right now, obviously hampering what the costs are there as well. The CEO also said that Congress should standardize health insurance broker compensation for those ACA plans. ACA broker compensation, well, it isn't standardized right now, and it creates incentives for brokers to steer consumers toward plans that pay higher commissions rather than those that best meet an individual's needs at that time. Yeah, that should be pretty standard there. So people, don't go off their financial interest, even if it's not something the consumer needs. But hey, some of those profits reportedly going back to the people, not the profits before, not the millions in profits before on that, but maybe this year they get out there as well. And folks, we might have a new battler out there in the space wars, we'll call it out there. Obviously SpaceX has dominated this thing with putting satellites up into space, and Jeff Bezos' space company, it's called Blue Origin. Well, it came out yesterday and they announced a plan to deploy 5,408 satellites into space. That's all going to be for a communications network, and it'll serve the data centers, governments, and businesses. And they're jumping into that, what they call the satellite constellation market. That is dominated right now by SpaceX. It's not even close. Deployment of the satellites is planned to begin in the last quarter coming up here in 2027. Blue Origin did say that the network is designed to have data speeds of up to 6 TBps, terabytes per second, anywhere on Earth. Yeah, satellites in space speeds up internet down here, folks. Blue Origin said the network is meant to serve a maximum of roughly 100,000 customers. So they revealed this network yesterday with this announcement. This new network up there in space that goes up in 2027 is going to be called TerraWave. It coincides with the space industry rush to build data centers up in space. And why are they doing that? Because they're trying to meet the soaring demand for large scale AI data processing. Well, here on Earth, we know this here, right here in Arizona, it requires huge energy requirements and resources as water and other things as this technology is expanding and the way they're building them. So now they're talking about building centers in space. How big of this is Starlink's network? SpaceX's network up there. Starlink is Elon Musk's company that deals with this. SpaceX just launches them. But that Starlink network has about 10,000 satellites. It's the farthest ahead in the global push to put internet infrastructure up in space. Swarms of low orbiting satellites is what they're doing here. They offer more security and higher connection speeds than traditional unitary satellites that are farther out in space and full in. So this battle is going on here. Now, two conglomerate large people and companies are battling it out now as well. And folks, back down here on Earth, July 4th is going to have a different meaning here as a iconic American hot dog maker has been sold. Yes, we're talking about Nathan's Famous Hot Dogs and even their fast food chain, whole company. Well, it was sold to Smithfield Inc. yesterday. Now, Smithfield is a Chinese owned pork producer and is sold in a $450 million all cash deal. Smithfield Foods is owned by WH Group. That's a Chinese pork and meat processing company. The two companies announced the merger in a statement yesterday. Smithfield Foods will acquire all of Nathan's Famous shares for $102 each, and that's what they said in the announcement. Smithfield Foods, well, they held an exclusive license within the United States, Canada, and Sam's Clubs in Mexico for the company to manufacture, distribute, market, and even sell Nathan's Famous branded hot dogs, sausages, corned beef, and other products from Nathan's. So they've had a long-standing relationship with Nathan's in a lot of these big countries. The license it goes all the way back to 2014. That was when the license was granted to Smithfield as well, and it's set to expire coming up in March of 2032. So Smithfield buying Nathan's, well, that obviously means that it's going to secure their rights to brand the Nathan's company there forever, as long as they own it moving forward. So an American iconic company being sold to a Chinese company here, moving up as well. And we lost another one out there, right? Mm. And let's go from hot dogs and that disappointment of a company selling to, well, Tesla Cybertrucks. Yeah, they're not, sales aren't going as well. They've always struggled, but they're not going nearly as well as at least Elon Musk and Tesla thought they would go. Yeah, they were cut nearly in half, the sales of the Cybertruck were in 2025. This comes from new data that was put out by Cox Automotive. Of course, Tesla sold 20,237 of its, Cybertrucks in 2025. 48.1% fewer cars than the what they moved in 2024. That's a big drop, folks. The decline came as overall electric car sales did fall in 2025. We told you Tesla is no longer the number one selling EV company out there, but other United States companies pumped up last year as well. But remember, electric car sales basically died after end of September when that President Trump and Congress eliminated that $7,500 tax credit for EV buyers. So EVs died end of September, October, November, December last year, but it was already struggling leading up to that as well. In by They released these numbers, by the way, beginning of this week here. Cox Automotive did. They say car makers as a total sold 1,275,714 electric cars in 2025. That's about 8% of overall U.S. auto sales for 2025. So you can see millions of EVs sold, but still only 8% of the actual sold market. The industry wide EV sales numbers were also down 2% from the 1.3 million electric cars that they sold in 2024. And that's all electric vehicles in the United States. Cox Automotive did say the overall EV sales number for 2025 was padded, all because of that rush among car buyers to buy those electric models in the third quarter of 2025. That was before the expiration of that $7,500 tax credit. If you wanted an EV, everybody rushed to buy one at the end of that year. It's so much so, car makers sold 365,830 EVs in the third quarter. Before that, I should say after that, in the fourth quarter, after the expiration of that deal, only 234,171 were sold after that tax credit went away there. So Tesla Cybertrucks down 50% in 2025. I think you're going to see that happen some more as well. It's going to continue to drop here coming up. Now let's go overseas a little bit here because, I mean, this affects you if you're a gamer and you like some of these games out there. But we are going to go to Paris, France. Ubisoft. They're a video game maker out there, and they're based out of France there and everything. They did games like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, for instance. Well, they came out yesterday. They announced a big, huge reorganization with their company. They also said they're going to cancel 6 upcoming games. So they plan to split its operations into 5 creative divisions. They're going to organize those divisions by genre. And now all of this is part of a broader attempt to kind of get more focus back on the company, but also rein in costs because they've had years of disappointing releases and very bad results here in that gaming industry. Ubisoft said it would abandon developments of 6 titles. Pay attention because of the 6 titles, 5 of them you probably don't care about. But if you're a gamer and you like these types of games, you're going to care about this one. Yeah, they've canceled the development of Prince of Persia, the new one coming out as well. Completely canceled it. Now, 7 series would be going to be delayed here coming up as well. So the biggest one is Prince of Persia that they've just flat out canceled the next one coming out. They also trimmed its net bookings forecast for 2026. They withdrew its guidance completely for the 26-27 fiscal year. Now, they're also closing a bunch of studios. Halifax, Canada, Stockholm, well, they're being closed, restructuring those buildings into other countries that already exist out there. And as I said, Ubisoft has been having a bunch of difficult years with game delays, cancellations, terrible releases that nobody buys the game and stuff. And the way Ubisoft has operated the last several years, it's eroded investor confidence. It strained, obviously, Ubisoft's finances, but just kind of lost the truck. I gave up on the Far Cry series because it just wasn't up to the standard of the first ones. And they're having a bunch of problems with it as well. And that's interesting to see these gaming industries with these, quite frankly, big, titles and big following games, just struggling to get them out there as well. And this one goes over to the France side of things as well. And when we come back here at McCollum on Business, we keep it going here on this Thursday. We'll come back, look at Datadog, GameStop, Intel, see what the market's doing here as it's regained all of the losses it had on Tuesday with all that Greenland stuff hitting the market. We'll talk all of that and more local stories coming your way. BNSF. they don't have approval yet for that yard, but they're acting like they do. We'll tell you more about that coming up. Plus, Mesa Gateway Airport. Can you buy lab-grown meat here coming up? Well, not the government has anything to do about it. We'll talk about all that here locally. Come on back. McCollum on Business. And welcome back here to McCollum on Business. Just saw the commercials there of the shows we produce here. Of course, The Real Matrix, Fridays, 10 a.m. here at Robat TV. You can get the newest episode. Episode 14 will be out this Friday, 10 a.m. for you. Of course, it comes out on the YouTube page, which we're going to change that a little bit here. But it comes out at noon there, as well as the podcast system. Search The Real Matrix on your favorite podcast system, and that does come up for you out there as well. But The Real Matrix, the Angry Patriot, well, he just wants you to tune in and keep an open mind here as he talks to you about what's happening out there in the world. And then, of course, right, the main event today, we had Uncle Lou on. UFC gets underway for the first time in 2026, new to Paramount Plus this year as well. Uncle Lou came in today, and we spent some time on the fights this weekend. Of course, NFL talk as well at the end of the show for the two games on Sunday. And he had an interesting pick there for one of the games. Definitely tune in. Catch it on demand here at Robat TV right now. If you missed us live, catch it on the YouTube page or free podcast system as well at TME Sports Show. It'll come right up for you. Or you can just search the main event with Steven. I know it pops up as well on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeart, all of those sites out there for you. Of course, when we're done here, well, we move this on and we get this up on demand at Robat TV and on the YouTube page as well. No podcast for this show at all. And then the pit stop coming back here in the next week or two, and we'll get that updated. Follow me at the Pit Stop Talk, and you can see all the racing talk that we do during the week. Of course, show coming back as well. Racing season gets underway beginning of February. We found out yesterday, no rules changes or anything for the Clash, which is coming up before the Daytona 500. And interesting enough, Daytona 500, they have 6 cars that aren't guaranteed a spot that have to qualify their way in. It was some big-name guys like Corey LaJoie out there, among others, battling for those spots for the Daytona 500 beginning of February here coming our way. So we'll get the pit stop back up and running for this 2026 season. Follow us here, Robat TV, on the YouTube page. There is podcast system for that as well at the Pit Stop Talk, which also is the social media. Hit us up at the Pit Stop Talk also for that. And follow us there for the announcements when we're coming back, and looking forward to get that show back on the air for the 2026 season. With all that being said, let's get right back into that Market Watch. They said we've officially gained back all of those losses, that 2-day or that 1-day loss on Tuesday, 2-day rally afterwards. We've officially gotten back those losses that we had on Tuesday. Everything's up big today, right? Dow Jones, 435 points up right now for it. S&P 500 up to 50 points. Nasdaq's up 257. Russell 2K is up 29 points right now. Bitcoin still under 90,000, but getting closer to 90,000, 89,633 right now for Bitcoin. So it's positive 2 days here with the market and stocks we're paying attention to. First one's going to be Datadog out there. There's cloud software company. They're up 7.08% right now as well. They got an update, and excuse me, an upgrade from an investment company called Stifel. It's now a buy rating, and it was on a hold rating before. Well, Stifel does expect Datadog to post strong fourth quarter growth, topping estimates again, which they did last quarter. Datadog jumped more than 5% yesterday on the market. A slew of analysts did reiterate buy or outperform ratings yesterday. Today, Stifel's done it as well. That's why they're up 7.10% right now. Interesting enough. Now, this number here I'm about to give you does not include today's number, so it's going to be less. But going into today, Datadog was down 9% so far in 2026, making that up right now, getting closer to even with this 7.10% up here today. But people and the analysts love this stock these last couple days with reiterating their ratings and upgrading them ahead of their fiscal reporting coming out. Next up, we're going to talk GameStop here. We had that story yesterday. They closed 5 locations here in Phoenix, one in Lake Havasu, the one store in Bullhead City. They're out of those 2 markets, one in Flagstaff, one in Tucson. Well, today we find out CEO and chairman there who has that compensatory package where he only gets paid off of how the company performs, doesn't even get a salary out there. Well, we found out he basically bought 500,000 shares of GameStop at a $21.60 value on Wednesday. Obviously, the stock's up to $23 today. It's at 6.04% up today as well. That obviously yesterday sent the stock 3% higher. This morning, now they're 6.04% up here today following that news as well. By the way, he also made 500,000 share purchase on Tuesday as well. So he's bought 1 million shares of the GameStop company in the last couple days. That's why the stock's responding here. It's up 6.04% here today, GameStop. And then let's look at Intel, right? Big presence here in the Valley, down there in Chandler with them. Well, they're barely up today, 0.15%. You can see the roller coaster Intel has been on today. Well, their fourth quarter earnings report does come out after the bell today. Analysts that are expecting revenue to be $13.42 billion, and they're expecting earnings of 8 cents per share today on Intel. 0.15% up. Been up and down throughout the day today. I think there might be some consternation if they're going to hit those numbers on that expectation side of things. But Intel reports later on today. We'll keep our eyes out there on that as well. Now let's get into some local stories that you need to know. And, what if you were never able to buy that lab-grown meat out there that is kind of making the market and waves out there? You can't buy it in the stores as of now, but some Arizona lawmakers out there, specifically one from Benson, well, they're moving to make sure that you can never, ever buy any lab-grown meat here in Arizona, meaning nowhere in the restaurants, nowhere in the grocery store. Other states have rules on this where it has to be clearly labeled it's lab-grown meat. And here in Arizona, a couple lawmakers are saying, we don't even want it here, period. This is a proposal by Republican Representative Lupe Diaz. It would make it illegal to sell cell-cultured protein for human consumption within Arizona. And I should have written that out differently, right? So this is going to be HB 2791, by the way. If you're wondering what bill this is, if you do want to look it up. Yes. By the way, the punishment for selling it here is not a light one. He says if you sell that meat here, you could end up in state prison for 18 months as the punishment for doing so. So this is the first one, as I said, that would kind of be the one to outright ban the lab-grown meats out there. Like I said, other states with similar laws, they simply deal with how you present it to everybody, right? The misrepresentation side of things. A lot of the other states that have laws, they require that the products are clearly labeled as lab grown meats, and there's no hiding it out there. And Arizona's like, we just don't want it here. The U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Food and Drug Administration, they approved the sale of lab produced chicken a few years ago. Two lab companies, Upside Food and Good Meat, well, they've been given permission to sell their products to restaurants as of this point as well. I'm not going to lie to you. Kind of hope that passes. I don't want to accidentally buy lab grown meat. I have no interest in that whatsoever. Yes. And now let's talk about, of course, the AG here in Arizona. We talk about her a lot here. Chris Mays here in Arizona. Well, now she's recently reached a settlement with Simon Med. Y'all know Simon Med. They're that medical imaging service provider. Yes, they had sued Simon Med before. Now the settlement is there. Now they're saying that Simon Med, well, they were accused of delaying refunds to customers that overpaid for their services. Here's what Chris May said. When a medical provider demands an upfront payment, the provider must refund any overpayments within a reasonable time period. That's what the announcement is about. That's what the settlement is about as well. She's saying that, by the way, Simon Med, it is based here in Scottsdale when it got started, and they're everywhere, right? They're like Circle K's. There's a Simon Med on every corner, it feels like, there. But she says that Simon Med charged customers up front using good faith estimates, right? So you look at your insurance and you go, insurance is going to cover this much. This is how much it costs. So I'm going to charge you whatever it is, right? And you pay for it. Well, they're saying that when the insurance paid for more and the customer was due a refund, well, it took too long to refund the customer when insurance later showed they had overpaid. So they say that some people waited more than a year to get their money back from Simon Med. So here's what Simon Med has to do in the settlement. They have to pay $50,000 in civil penalties, $20,000 in restitution, $20,000 in costs and fees also. It also has to take the following corrective measures in terms of what to do moving forward. Yeah, they have to give refunds within about 60 days after insurance finishes processing a patient's claim. They have to give patients an update on their refund status if their claims aren't resolved in a timely manner. They also have to let patients who disagree with the company's policy of charging them up front based on that good faith, estimate model that they have. Well, they're saying now that you as a consumer don't have to pay it, but you have to keep a credit card on file and you will be charged only after your insurance company processes the claim. My opinion is that should be the way it goes. Like my doctor doesn't charge me until insurance pays for it, and then I get the bill. That's the way it should be. You shouldn't pay up front off of an estimate, especially when it's hundreds of dollars or something to that effect, right? Consumers who think they were affected by Simon Med's billing practices, well, you should file a complaint with the Arizona Attorney General's office no later than April 30th to be eligible for restitution in this settlement lawsuit out there. So, heads up on that. If you've had a prepay and you're still waiting for a refund, and I'll bet you most people don't even know they're expecting a refund, to be honest with you. So that'll be an interesting side of that perspective. But yeah, don't pay for the service if it's based off of an estimate. I can pay for it when it's done. Let's go down to Tucson here, and it's going to affect Phoenix as well. But this is about the Tucson Pride Festival out there. Well, organizers did announce, quite frankly, yesterday that the annual LGBT plus event, well, it's going to be canceled for 2026. Not only that, it's be canceled for a while. Well, the whole organization is going to close its doors down there in Tucson. Back in October 21st of 2025, the same group announced that they had moved 2025's parade and festival. It was set to take place on November 22nd of last year, that they moved it to February 21st this year. And obviously, now they're canceling this year's one down there in Tucson as well. Back in October, when they announced the movement, of the parade, well, they cited logistical reasons. They said then that it stemmed from a large event, another large event was set to take place on the same day as the parade. But the problem is they had a lot of losses in 2024. And they had an issue within the organization, is kind of what they said. So organizers said at that time, and again, October of last year, That they said, along with other LGBTQ plus nonprofits, they face declining donations and even corporate sponsorships due to shifting political and increased hostility, is their words that they used, towards those types of causes. By the way, the organizers of the Phoenix Pride, they've also reported similar donation and sponsorship issues. They did that back in November 30th of 2025 also. So Tucson Pride stuff completely gone. Phoenix, as of now, is still scheduled ready to go. Most people, by the way, hold their Pride parades in June. We do not here in Arizona because it's too hot. So they do it other times of the year. But sponsorships, corporate sponsorships, donations really have dried up for those organizations out there. So I just wanted to let you guys know that as well. And then finally, up here again, let's go up toward Whitman and BNSF. That's not dead. They're having problems getting it through the city council. The homeowners up there are still fighting it happening up there. We're talking about this railway warehousing and offloading and kind of a site there for BNSF. Well, now we know that they are very quietly, very unassuming. Yeah, they're scooping up Whitman properties around that sprawling site where the railway giant has long planned to build that giant logistics park out there. The price of this park is at $3.2 billion. So BNSF has acquired 55.95 acres across 14 transactions, all of it totaling over $9 million. This is all according to Maricopa County property records. So they're buying houses around that site, folks, is what they are doing. Probably people upset and not allowing the vote to continue and fighting them, right? According to the Phoenix Business Journal, one seller told them that they were unable to disclose more information because they signed a non-disclosure agreement with BSNF. Other sellers could not be reached for comment on Tuesday also on that. So, for instance, you're able to see transaction, this is according to the Business Journal, one transaction involved a property purchased in June 2025. It was bought for $95,000. It was then sold to BNSF in January for $150,000 for that's quite a profit there as well. So a BNSF spokesperson has confirmed in an email statement to the Business Journal that the company recently purchased additional land up there in Whitman adjacent to the existing property out there. So BNSF, they're buying property. Homeowners up there are selling the property to them, making some good money, I'm gathering, as well in doing so, as BNSF is trying to clean up the opposition to that big logistics warehouse, train switching out spot, unloading spot up there in Whitman, Arizona. So, hey, can't beat them, buy them, I guess is the way to look at that, right? Let's go out to the other side of the valley, Mesa Gateway Airport. They've officially surpassed 2 million passengers in 2025. That is a single year record for the small airport down there in Mesa. They're probably going to get mad at me for calling them small. Yes, they announced their official number yesterday. 2,036,218 passengers used the airport in 2025. They previously set a fiscal year record with over 2 million passengers during the 12 months back in 2024. That was July of 24 through June of 25 to make that 2 million passengers. They did surpass the previous annual record by about 8% also, they announced yesterday. Back this airport hasn't been around too long. The commercial air service actually began back in 2007. And in 2007, a sprawling 180,000 passengers went through the Mesa. Back then, it was called Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport. They've since dropped the Phoenix side of it. Airport officials are expanding it and still expanding it to keep that growth going, but they're currently working on major projects, part of more than $130 million in planned improvements over the next 5 years. The largest one, or maybe one of the largest ones, I think it's the largest one, is the phase two of the reconstruction of that 10,000-foot runway they're trying to get redone. They're also building a new TSA checked baggage inspection facility. It's going to triple the number of bags processed each hour. Obviously, if you're getting your more and more people traveling through those airlines or through that airport, you've got to get the speed of the bag checks done as well, and all of that there. But big success there. 2 million passengers in 2025. and 25. And I can tell you, man, I live out there. You can tell when an airline comes in or an airline's getting ready to board to go out because that area gets packed. And then you can tell when nothing's happening there because it's a lot of silence. Appreciate you joining me here for McCollum on Business Thursday edition. We'll be back tomorrow on Friday at 11 o'clock as well. So come and join us, would you? Don't forget, main event tomorrow at 8 a.m. This show at 11 tomorrow as well. Real Matrix tomorrow. New episode 10 a.m. here at Robat TV. On demand, noon on the podcast systems and everything else. Come and join us. Enjoy our programming here, folks. We'll see you next time here on McCollum on Business.